Stranger Things is one of the most well-crafted television shows I've ever seen, and it gets a lot right. And while we're all waiting for season 2 to release, or we're watching it because most likely while you're watching this video, season 2 has already happened, but nevertheless, I wanted to focus on my favorite aspect of season 1, how the Byers' house grows, changes, and is affected by the story just as much as any of the other characters are. Let me explain by actually talking about another series. In the movie Super 8, the town changes as the story goes on. In the movie, we see it go from a calm and quiet town to becoming loud and chaotic, finally ending with the whole town going into utter mayhem. Stranger Things does a similar thing with the Byers' house, where in every episode, something about the house physically changes, usually in a way that is impacted by the story and the characters, particularly with Joyce. So with all that being said, I wanted to take a look throughout the show and just kind of show off some of these things and these changes that I noticed in the series, in a little segment that I call shifting settings. I don't know if there is actually a real term for this in filmmaking because I am not a filmmaking expert. I'm just a huge fan of it. So in episode 1, we see a lot of the Byers' house in normal situations, with Joyce and Jonathan eating breakfast and doing other mundane things. And yes, Will's disappearance causes a huge stir in the home, but it's when the first phone is fried that something changes, because Joyce knows something weird is going on. Leading into episode 2, we now start to see Joyce change her living situation as she moves the armchair closer to the phone, which, by the way, is my favorite scene in the entire show. I just love that little moment on how there's so much said without any words. It's just beautiful to me. But I digress. She goes through another phone in a similar situation, and again, it's weird. But then we get the clash moment, where after being afraid and worried about Will, Joyce becomes determined to find him. Joyce is gonna stay. But you're probably wondering, okay, yeah, that has a lot to do with Joyce. What does it have to do with the house? Well, in the next couple of moments, all of Joyce's determination physically affects the house, such as when she moves all the lamps into Will's room. Then she puts all the Christmas lights up, and then through that she starts talking to Will with yes or no questions. And then boom, she paints letters on the wall, physically changing her entire setting. She has like a total disregard to what will happen to her house, which is great because all she cares about right now is her son. So then let's move into episode 4, because at this point, everyone still thinks Joyce is crazy, and her frustration and desperation to find Will becomes greater, thus resulting in that scene, a hole in the wall. We're halfway through this series, and even a solitary building has been affected by these events. This leads to another part of the show that I think is really, really interesting. It's when someone does something destructive, they have a constructive intention behind that, and vice versa. So in episode 5, Lonnie, Joyce's ex-husband, comes back, and he is trying to repair the hole in the wall. Not for Joyce's sake, but because he feels pity for her because he thinks she's crazy. That's a destructive attitude. But then later in episode 5, Hopper takes the Christmas lights down in fear of Joyce's house of being bugged by the government. That's a constructive attitude. Now let's jump to the end with episode 8, where Jonathan and Nancy set up the house as one big trap for the Demogorgon. They're being destructive, but with constructive intentions. And then even at this moment, this is one of the only times Joyce is not in the Byers' house, and it's just Jonathan, Nancy, and even Steve, where he goes through his big character moment at this part. Well, he does it before then too, but at this part, all of these kids have to step up and grow up, all of which is physically happening in the Byers' house. Settings have shifted. I understand this is a lot, and some of it I may be reading too much into it, but every time I watch the show, I love watching this house change and turn. And I see so many people talk about other parts of the show, like the acting and the characters and the writing, the cinematography, the editing, the transitions, and on top of all of that, the mysteries and secrets this show has to offer. Which, don't get me wrong, these are all incredibly valid and wonderful things to talk about because there's just so much good in the show. And I would love to cover a lot of these topics in future videos. But for me, it's all of these small touches that happen in the house. All of these little character moments that are happening that the actors are doing a wonderful job in displaying. But then you have the added element of seeing it physically. Like in episode 6, the Byers' house becomes a place where all the characters finally meet and converge. I also love just how everyone reacts to this house and how it changes and how it's really, for lack of a better word, strange. And I just really love the importance of the Byers' house. And you know what? I think the show's creators do too.
Oh, come on, Joyce. Just look around at this place. Oh, your Christmas lights? The hell am I supposed to think? You're such a great mom? You're a mess!
Maybe I am a mess. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm out of my mind. But God help me, I will keep these lights up until the day I die if I think there's a chance that Will's still out there. Now, get out! Get out of my